A golfer who's great at hitting your wedges up to, say, your mid irons, but you then feel like you are missing something when it comes to the longer irons and the driver, then you need to pay attention to today's videos, because this is going to really explain exactly the difference between the driver and the iron swing and the thing that you are likely getting wrong. So what we are looking to do is, when we are hitting the iron, we're looking to create a good bend of the hip so that my shoulder falls pretty much over my toe line, softening of the knees, and then I would have a setup position which would look like so. Now, if I now drew a line through the heel of the club up through my elbow line, this is known as our swing plane. So once we've got that established, the idea now is I just want to take the club back, up that plane line, down, through and along the plane line as I'm demonstrating here. Now, with the shorter clubs, so say 7-iron, 8-iron, through to your wedges, obviously they are shorter in length. Okay, so when the club is shorter in length, what this means is that you are going to be able to stand closer to the ball. And what this means is that your plane will become more vertical. Okay, now, why is that relevant? Well, the common denominator with golfers is that they struggle with retaining hip depth. And I'm going to show you exactly how to start retaining hip depth. Now, what I mean by this is golfers will start the downswing and they will either turn incorrectly. So see the way, if I draw a line in the back of my hips here, so they'll either turn incorrectly, so they end up moving close to the ball. Now, what this means is when you now hit the ball, you are going to be delivering the club shaft more vertically than the angle that it would want to for its best desired results. And the problem is when you get the club shaft returning more vertically, the chances of you striking out of the center of the face diminishes massively. So this is one of the reasons why you're inconsistent. However, obviously with your shorter clubs, say up to 7-iron, you can still kind of get away with it. You know, if I was kind of going to stand here and I lose my hip depth and I pull down on it pretty vertical like so, it might not feel correct, but I can still produce good results. Now, the dilemma you now have is when the clubs get longer, and let's go all the way up to the longest one, the driver. If I get set up in a similar fashion, so a good bend of the hips, shoulders go over towards my toe line as I'm demonstrating here, but now you see the club shaft is shallower. And all of a sudden, if I now return the driver more vertically, you're going to have more inconsistency, because as the clubs get less lofted, you have to control the club face more. And to be able to control the club face, you have to control the club shaft. So what does this mean? Well, it means that if you are going to work on keeping your club shaft working shallower, if you like lower to the ground as opposed to this way, then the big thing that you're going to have to understand is how to retain hip depth. Now, if I draw a line in the back of my hips, the correct retention of hip depth basically means when I turn back, my right hip goes back behind the line, and as I start the downswing, I pull my left hip behind the line, and then from there my arms can swing through, and this would mean I'm retaining good hip depth and getting a good swing plane. Question is, how do you do that? Well, in reality, it's actually relatively straightforward. First of all, in the backswing position, if you concentrate more on the idea of keeping your lower body a little quieter, more on the idea of allowing your trail leg to stay flexed, and make sure you're sequencing your backswing where it feels like you're using your hands and arms and upper body first and then letting your lower body turn, that's going to give you the ability to create good hip depth. So one of the ways I fix hip depth problems is by getting golfers to think more about lifting the club up and using their arms in the backswing, and all of a sudden you get rid of any unnecessary lower body movement. So that's number one. Downswing. This is something that I work on all the time with students. Golfers who have a tendency to lose hip depth is because what they are doing is they're starting their downswing pushing off the right side. And can you see the way that shoots my hips closer towards the ball? You don't want to do that. You want to be pulling your lead side back. See the way I pull the left side back like so? And what this does is this helps me bring the club down, drop it into the plane line, so then I can give it the good chance of keeping that club moving through on plane, which gives me the best chance of getting the club face nice and square. So work on your hip depth. Get good posture. The swing is exactly the same with driver and iron, apart from some subtle deviations in ball position as we progress. But the reason why you feel like you're missing something is because when you're losing hip depth, you're going to deliver the club more vertically, and the longer the club goes, the less that's going to be liked. See you soon.